Welcome to This Podcast is Making Me Thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is Two Up and Two Down. Here's our producer, Chris, to start us off.
Hey, welcome back. We got the Subway, which is a season 3 episode. And we're going to start things off with Chris for your first up. What do you got?
All right, the Subway season 3, a memorable episode across the board. My one up is just the show kicking off. That opening scene at Monk's, I love. Kramer talking about the directions. Oh, you can take the B and the F to switch to Lafayette. Couldn't you just take the D straight to Coney Island? Just the talk is great. Jerry mentioning, Biff and Willie Loman to George again, sprinkling that in. George about the lesbian wedding. How do they work out the bride and groom? Do they flip a coin? And like Elaine gives him that look, and he says, "What is that? Not politically correct?" I mean, that opening scene with the way all four of them just packed it all in there was unbelievable. And then it ends with them all getting up, and of course Jerry has to pay for breakfast, and he's so ticked. He usually pays for it anyway, but he's kind of ticked off. Why do I got to pay? And then they all go off. So for me, talk about setting the tone for a great episode. I got to tell you, similar to the contest in that way. All four there together, just establishing greatness. So first one up, opening scene.
Absolutely. So I agree with that one. Tony, over to you. What's your first up here?
Wow. All right. You bunch of deadbeats to end that scene is a great line by Jerry when he has to pick up the check. I love when he says that. You bunch of deadbeats. All right. Let's get into it. Yeah, no, ups. I mean, this might be too broad, but I think this is Kramer. I think this is Kramer's like entrance into America. I think this is Kramer finally being Kramer. I mean, there's glimpses of it here and there before this episode. But this episode is Kramer and Michael Richards on the subway both times. He's on the subway the first time trying to get the seat. And then when he goes for the newspaper and rips the little piece, we've all been there on the subway. I mean, talking about New York City. I mean, obviously it's called the subway. O'Hara touched on the whole, how to get the car. But this episode takes me back to New York City, that gritty New York City. Just watching this episode, it's so good. But Kramer, the subway, and then in the OTB with the let's go, and he's going crazy and he wins. I mean, this is Kramer's. I mean, this is an absolute. Michael Richards puts on a show in this episode. I love the newspaper. That's my up. The K-Man delivering on all cylinders.
Absolutely, great Kramer in this episode. So now let's go back to Chris for your second up. Only two here. So what do you got?
Yeah, there's plenty, and I think this is an episode where you can go broad and you could touch on a million things. And for me, I'm going to go with George and Barbara Stock, the beautiful woman, Bulls, Bears, not only on the subway, but off. And when she gets off, if you don't laugh out loud, when George gets up and says, "What's another million, give or take?" and he runs out of the subway. I mean, that is Seinfeld. That is George. And then, I'll just double down again with George and Barbara Stock, at the hotel, make yourself comfortable. What's comfortable? Like the thoughts that go through your head, not that we've all been there, but, those are similar thoughts. And then obviously lines for the ages, I got that at Mo Ginsberg. Will I ever see you again? The whole $8 thing. I mean, Costanza and Barbara Stock, we have to hope to have her on the program. As good as it gets. Again, George's unemployed at this point. That's why we love him. He's searching for a job. But, boy, can he pull off that, business guy, the Bulls, the Bears. Fantastic. So, second thumbs up.
Absolutely. Great scene there with those two in the hotel room. So, Tony, what do you got for your second up here?
Yeah, the big brokerage houses, he says. The big market, the big one, the big market. Yeah, just Costanza's great. My next up, though, I love And I just love the Elaine on the subway with the voiceover. Voiceovers don't always land, but this one is just incredible. Just cursing her face off, just all the beep, just the beep it, move. But we've all been there as well. This is brings you into New York on the subway where it just stops for no reason. And every time I've ever been on a subway and it stops more than 5 seconds, I think about this episode. I do the Elaine thing in my head. Move, move. Just Elaine, just incredible in the crowded subway. Melman's there next to her. A little nod to Melman, friend of the show, but just Elaine's voiceover and just her riding that subway. I mean, I can give the old lady a nod, well, but I'm just going with Elaine on this one. Just the voiceover of her just screaming her face off, just like what the hell is going on here? Is that a rat? All kinds of stuff. That's my my up.
All right. I mean, we could just go on and on, I think, all day with ups, but now we got to discuss downs, and you got to give two. So, Chris, what's your first down?
Yeah, and listen, downs can go a variety of ways. For me, it's going to be just nitpicky. That's where we're going to go on this one. It's Kramer won all that money. What's he doing? What's he doing going back on the subway? Take a cab home, Kramer. You won whatever, $18,000, whatever it was. Treat yourself. Take a cab home. So Kramer hopping back on the subway always baffled me, especially after winning that kind of money. Take care of it, but maybe that's just me. But Kramer, take the cab, my friend.
Yeah, maybe the guy was hot on his trail and he's trying to lose him down in the subway. But all right, yeah, I got you. Yeah, you can splurge for a cab now. So Tony, what's your first down here?
Yeah. Well, I don't have a lot of downs written down, I'm noticing. I guess my down on this one is the ending. We've touched on this in other early episodes. Now, this is season 3, but it's still, this is kind of, I guess, well, I'm not saying the ending now. George is actually the ending. I'm talking about Kramer's ending. When they probably, they didn't end it on this note, so I give them credit there, but it is kind of a happy little, like, the violin player he's actually a cop, little sitcom-y. That's something you would see in a sitcom back then at that time, where there's like, the twist, the guy playing the violin actually is a cop and saves Kramer from getting robbed. Don't love it. Never really loved it. I get it. It makes sense. And it's, but it's not a Seinfeld ending, if you will. I never like when Seinfeld ends on those kind of happy notes like that. Although, like I said, they do go back to Harry Krishner. But I think the Kramer getting, to Harry's point, he's on the subway. And then that's why they do it, I guess, to get him so the guy could be the cop. But don't love that part. So that's my down.
All right. Well, yeah, it kind of evens out. I mean, Jerry kind of still has a good trip on the subway, having a conversation with the Naked Met fan. And then, Kramer has a good ending on the subway, but George and Elaine have different outcomes taking their subway. So I guess it evens out. But anyway, I digress. Chris, what do you have for your down here?
Yeah, I think we're all getting a little nitpicky here, clearly. And I'm getting more. I mean, I have a couple downs, but nothing like. And mine's more just logistics. Larry and Jerry, they start on the 5 train and to Utica Avenue. Okay, anyone in New York knows the 5 train's on the east side, not the west side. So didn't make sense. Little thing there. Again, the AC, which is on the west, will take you to Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, and then they could do all their switches and stuff, but not the 5. And then we know Seinfeld's a west side guy. That's a theme throughout the show. So if you're on the 5, you're not starting on the west side. I know it's a little down, a little nitpicky, but editing, that's small. Oh, then I had this one an Emmy for editing, which is crazy.
All right. Well, hey, you're a New Yorker, so yeah, very good pickup there. Tony, what's your second down here?
I'm surprised. Yeah, I mean, my thing is the same. My down's similar, but even more crazy is Kramer. You mentioned it earlier. Kramer's whole speech about the subway lines. I mean, just making shit up at that point, right? I mean, those were not subway lines. My guess is there's something. I feel like there's a law or some sort of logistics where they can't use the real stuff. I don't know why it's in my head somewhere. Maybe that's what this was. But just Kramer naming all those made up lines and made up names. That's my down. Similar, it's the same thing. It's like, but then they go and use the real line, like you said. They used the real subway line in the wrong spot. So some logistics here that don't really add up. Again, like you said, nitpicking. I never loved Kramer's like spiel because I just feel like, get it right. But maybe I don't know, maybe there's something they can't use it, but I don't know if that's a thing or not. But anyway, that's my down is the Kramer given the wrong subway line, just making stuff up. It's funny because he's naming a whole bunch of different things and then, can't you just take the D? But that's my down, similar down.
All right, so that's wrapped up the ups and downs. So let's give it the final grade. Chris, your final grade here.
Yeah, and clearly I like that Kramer line because I had him my up, and I think that's just he's like that crazy New Yorker, like always thinks he knows the best route, and they even foreshadowed that when he does the stupid fireman stuff. But that's Kramer. That's the K-Man. This one I am hankering between two grades, but they talk about a show about nothing. This epitomized it. It's the four getting together. I talked about it on my first up, and then all four going in different directions, and all four on all four cylinders. I mean, we didn't even talk about Jerry, the Mets with Ernie Sabala. Incredible. The George stuff we mentioned. Elaine just, with the inner monologues. The K-Man you gave, props to as an up. I mean, any way you slice it, New York City, the subway, they're out of Jerry's apartment, all four together, all four splitting up. This is an A. I was tinkering on A minus, but the more we talk about it, I don't really find any fault in this episode. If I'm nitpicking on like a subway line or things like that, then that's when all four are that strong, and then you get some pretty good guest stars. The woman, we didn't even talk about the loves the slop. Mother was a mother. Like those guys are great. Obviously Ernie Sabala, the Mets. There's Barbara Stock. I mean, geez, this is an A. I can't dispute it. You can't convince me to go lower. Hell, we could go higher, but I'm going to stick with an A.
All right. Well, let's go right to Tony because I want to hear your grade here.
Wow. I mean, first of all, I've changed my grade like 6 times during this. And again, you mentioned it. I was going to mention we didn't even touch on one of the best scenes in the history of the show. In my opinion, probably the best sports related scene you're going to see. Talk about New York. Talk about New York sports. Just they got no pitching. They got no hitting. They got no bullpen. They got no leaders back and forth. I mean, that's a discussion that's had on every street corner from here to a fucking, Fifth Avenue. Yeah. I mean, it's an all-timer. I've changed my grade 4 times, and I'm going to be a little lower than you. I'm going to go A minus. And I'm not sure why, but believe me, I started way lower than that, and I've worked my way up. I don't know what it is. The more we talk about this episode, the more I think about it. It always makes me feel good. Like you said, the New York stuff, the subway, the baseball conversation, Hazel's not. I don't think George.
By the way, she does look like Hazel. Yeah. We'll put that on the YouTube. Yeah.
The whole thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I can go as high as an A. I don't know why. I think it's just this episode sort of. I think the Elaine stuff is where, even though I gave Elaine an up, which is crazy. I think the lesbian wedding stuff, the old lady, even that's so good. That's so New York. That conversation she's having. Yeah, Subway's an A. Subway is an A. I'm talking myself into it. I've gone one more time all the way up to an A for the Subway.
I mean, think about it. It's Larry,
everything. It's
Larry
everything.
Charles. It's so tight.
It's very tight.
It's just Ernie Sabala and Barbara Stock and the other woman. That's it.
It's very tight. And you know what it is? That woman, the way she talks is the way every woman her age talked then and still talks now, just the whole the man, the whole thing she say, the way she talks. Yeah. I mean, the Subway's an A. Fuck it.
Yeah. Listen, I love this episode, so I'm glad you guys both decided to give it an A. So thank you guys, and we'll see everybody with the next episode.